And we're back. Questionable Calls podcast. Clark, it's been a while. We would have been back last week, honestly, but I got the amazing opportunity to go to the Masters last weekend, last Sunday for the final round. It was pretty awesome. But yeah, no, a lot of a lot of stuff going on in sports right now, Clark. NBA playoffs, the draft's coming up this week. It's going to be, we watched the NCAA tournament, men's and women's. So this is going to be, this is one of my favorite times of the year, Clark. We get to April, and I feel like this is one of my favorite times to just relax and enjoy.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot going on. So I mean the playoffs. I haven't really I haven't been watching much NBA during the regular season. So I'm just kind of getting caught up to what's going on. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, exciting. I watched a little hockey today. The Panthers won their first game.
Oh, they did. So yeah, I got to keep up with that.
That makes up for the Heat getting their ass kicked today, which we expected. But so yeah, we're gonna talk a lot of NBA playoffs. We got an NFL story that I'm kind of interested in. But first and foremost, went to the Masters last weekend. Was there for the final round, and I mean, Clark, I already talked to you about it, but it is a special place. That's all I can say. It is different than any place I've ever been. I haven't been to a lot of golf tournaments, but I venture to guess there isn't another one quite like that. So it was really, really amazing. We found a good spot on the 12th hole where you could basically see, the 11th green, the 12th tee, and the 13th tee. So, which was a pretty cool spot on the course. But you get there, Clark, and my first impression, I mean, my goodness, it doesn't look anything like it does on TV. What you're seeing on TV is not even anywhere close. You get on the course and you realize how big, number one, how big it is. Number two, I mean, it's big, but then the holes feel like they're right next to each other at the same time. And then, the elevation changes and how high the hills are. And I mean, for people walking the course, like, good luck. I mean, that's a tough deal. The hills are all over the place. The elevation changes. The place where we were most of the day was about basically the lowest point on the course. So you can understand how the wind changes, in different areas of the course because of the trees, because of the ways that the trees kind of hug the fairway on certain holes. And so yeah, and gorgeous. I mean, the fairway looks like a carpet. Looks like it was laid out for you. It is soft. I mean, I'm really impressed. Even the rough is like the fairway at a local golf course. Is how our dad described it. Their rough is not even really rough. It's just it's really kind of strange. But yeah, the elevation changes and the hills and it was a really, really cool experience. I can't imagine, I don't know that I'll be rubbing shoulders with those kinds of people ever again. I mean, it is definitely, as I described, the upper crust at that tournament. These are not people that I would normally be hanging out with, or have or ever will hang out with.
Right.
So, and I will say this, like, Clark, I've never been to a place where everyone was genuinely happy to be there. I mean, people are thrilled to be there. I mean, you would have no idea there's this entire outside world going on outside this place. Because once you get in there, it's like its own planet. And it's kind of like it's all laid out for you. Okay, would you, come right this way, sir, right over here, and it's just they roll everything out for you. The hospitality is unbelievable. And yeah, it was really cool seeing everybody. We were by the first tee when Tiger first teed off on Sunday. Tiger looks old. That's all I can say. Not just for the way he moves around. I mean, obviously he's cut from some kind of stone or something. His upper body is ridiculous, but you just look at his face and you're just like, man, he looks kind of haggard. He looks kind of beat up. And so, it must be, I've heard, I mean, his training regimen must be crazy, to all the stuff he has to do to be able to walk around the course. And honestly, when I found out we were going on Sunday, it was kind of like I don't even know if Tiger's going to physically make it to Sunday, but he
Yeah.
did. He hung in there well enough to play, and so that's a that's definitely a credit to him. But there was no once that he passed us on the 12th hole, there was nobody's talking about Tiger anymore, which is kind of that's kind of different. But
Right.
yeah, it's really cool to see those guys up close. And we were outside the 18th green when Scheffler walked by after he had won, and it. And I will say this: I was kind of like, oh man, we're not allowed to bring our phones. What's that going to be like? It actually really works. Like not having your phone. I mean, now the only problem is like you have no idea what's going on the rest of the course. Like you have no idea who's doing what. There's a scoreboard there, so you can see it when guys birdie holes or make a double bogey or whatever. But you really have no clue. Like you're just kind of watching what's in front of you, and that's about it. And then when you go around to the other holes, then you kind of figure out, okay, but you miss like you can see. There's a lot you can see while you're there, and I definitely say you should definitely go if you get the opportunity. But you see, it's a lot. But watching it on TV, you get a lot more out of it
Right.
because you only see on TV you get to see everything.
Uh-huh.
And here you see basically what's there, and that's about it. And if you're not on the hole when that happens, now you hear the crowd roar, every now and then, but you have no idea what it's about. So it's just kind of that part's kind of strange. Like you have no idea what's going on any other part of the course. Um, but yeah, it was really cool. The food was pretty good. The only downside was it was hot. I mean, there were no clouds and no wind on Sunday, so it was it was kind of rough being in the sun. But it was like I think it was like 85. It wasn't horrific, but it was that was kind of difficult. But the rest of it was really awesome.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I was watching, trying to see if I could see you guys, but no, it was just
Yeah,
it's
it's
too. They
just
don't
too
show the crowd
difficult.
that much. It's too difficult to see.
Yeah, and it's hard to get. I mean, it's hard to get close to anywhere, really. I mean, the crowds are it's piled in there pretty much. They say 35 or 40,000 people are there that day, and it depending on what hole you're at, you don't necessarily notice it as much. But yeah, if you don't get to the hole you want to see, if you don't get there early, like it's hard to. And this weird tradition, like you're allowed to just put your chair down with your name on it, and that's it. You can just leave it there
Hmm.
and then you can come back and sit there whenever you want. So people do kind of sit in your seat, and if you come up, they'll get up. It's just very, there's in so many ways just completely different than any other sporting event that I'll probably ever go to. I don't imagine there's going to be anything like it.
Right.
And it's a shame that the final round wasn't more interesting. That Scheffler kind of just pretty much once he got past our hole, the 12th, it was pretty much over.
Yeah.
He pretty much had the thing won. So that was, I was like, all right. Not that wasn't great, but it was great for him. I mean, it's the guy was awesome. No, got to hand it to him.
Right.
So yeah, definitely recommend it. It was a lot of fun. And honestly, I'd love to go like I would love to go to like a practice round one year because you can take pictures and stuff. And I would imagine it's a little more laid back. So I feel like that would be fun.
Right.
But I'm sure people tell me whether I'm right about that, but that was my thought process.
Cool.
All right. So before we get into the NBA playoffs, we just had a first. We got a couple more games left, but we're almost through the game. Everybody playing game one. This story came out in the NFL this week that I thought was kind of fascinating. So apparently, it came out that Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, talked to Arthur Blank, who is the owner of the Atlanta Falcons. Apparently, they're good friends, and basically, the story is I don't know exactly what's true, but the story is that he basically told Arthur Blank, "Don't hire Bill Belichick. You can't trust him." And I just my first thought when I heard this was, well, Atlanta's got to be putting this out. Atlanta wants people to know why they didn't hire Belichick. Because they've obviously got some. they've got some low self esteem, some sports franchise low self esteem issues. So I'm sure that Atlanta is the one that's revealing this story. But that's number one. And number two, okay, so you have a private conversation with an owner and another team. Well, why is it getting out to the media then? So that's the other part that I can't really grasp. Like, I don't understand. Like, what is at this point? Like, what is Kraft doing? Like, you fired Belichick already. Like, what is your end game here? You don't want him to get hired by anybody else? Like,
They want to
what is the
control the
deal?
narrative.
Yeah, I mean, what are we after here? Like, honestly, like Kraft's already gotten blasted for the documentary because everybody feels like he shortchanged Belichick, which we can debate that, but
Well,
that's
that
the
could be
bottom line.
why. I mean, they want to take shots at Belichick. I mean, this is how this stuff goes. It's kind of like, you know, some people have a sort of a conspiracy theory that Michael Jordan okayed the Last Dance documentary after LeBron beat the Warriors because people started asking, is
Right.
LeBron the greatest player of all time? So that when you get with these hyper competitive people, that's what it becomes about, trying to control the narrative and trying to get uh, their story out there and what benefits them. So I think that's probably what's going on, and there's probably going to be some shots back and forth between Belichick and Robert Kraft. I find it interesting that Brady seems to have always taken the high road. Like, there's
Yeah.
stories about he's critical of Belichick and some different things and upset, but when he gets directly asked about it, he doesn't say anything, or he only has positive stuff to say. Which, that's a credit to Tom Brady, because if I think a lot of people, if given the opportunity, would have been like, "Man, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He could never get me a receiver or whatever." So he's taking the high road, but I guess with this situation and with other stuff, I'm sure there'll be other stuff that follows over the next several years. I they're probably not going to take the high road. So
Yeah, it just blows my mind that Kraft would like what are you doing, man? Like why would you, like honestly, you're trying to poison the water? Like I just don't at this point I don't understand what he has to gain about it. And unless Belichick did something awful like Nick Wright was saying on First Things First, unless he embezzled money from the Patriots or something, like like what are you doing? So I think that I mean like I said, my first thought about this was looking at it from the Falcons perspective, and I really think that the Falcons want it. They want it to be out there. Well, Belichick's the third choice. Well, why do you want that to be out there? You know what I mean? Like I feel like Atlanta is trying to protect themselves from criticism, and it's like they hired they hired who they wanted, and I that's fine. There's no issue with that for me. But yeah, that just kind of blew my mind. It's just kind of like
well,
you
I'll
know,
say this from the perspective of well, I mean, I don't. This is my guess because I don't have this perspective. I'm not really, really, really rich and successful like Tom Brady or Belichick or Robert Kraft, but really successful people, I think the concept of letting it go, that doesn't really fly with hyper competitive people. They take stuff as slights, and they use it as motivation, and they want to get their story out there, and they think that they're always right. So yeah, for you and I, it's like, oh, come on, just get over it, let it go. Well, for other people, I don't think it's as easy just to let stuff go. They have their and I think that's also part of, if you're really that successful, then you kind of have to believe your own narrative. And so it becomes really important to push that all the time. And so, and to the rest of us are like, man, will you like chill out? It's like, they can't. You know, that would be my guess. I don't have inside information on this, but that would be my read of the situation.
yeah, I think it's ridiculous from Robert Kraft that you bought the team for $200 million. They're worth $6 billion now. Like, and I guess that speaks to your point. Kraft thinks, well, I'm awesome. I must be awesome then. And so this is going to be really fascinating to see how this goes because in my opinion, Clark, I think Belichick's going to get another job because this whole season coming up, every coach, especially in you talk about Philadelphia, the New York Giants, the Dallas Cowboys, when those teams lose games, the media is going to be all over this. They should hire Bill Belichick. I think it's going to be a narrative that goes throughout the entire season about a whole bunch of teams. So
Right.
I think Belichick gets a job, and I think at this point it's like, oh, now Belichick's going to try to stick it in Kraft's face. So we have kind of an interesting power struggle going on here, which I'm kind of fascinated by.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on from that, so Clark, the Golden State Warriors lost to the Sacramento Kings, pretty much got their ass kicked. Klay Thompson had one of the worst games of his career. I don't think he made a shot from the field. And the Warriors are out out of the playoffs and done for the season. Which, by the way, if anybody had been listening to this podcast, we could have told you that. We kind of told you that last year that the Warriors were history, and that's kind of the way that's gone. But yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff to talk about with them. I think that for first of all, and I think this is a really obvious take, but um, these things don't end well, for any team. This is kind of how these things end most of the time. It's not going to be great, and that's kind of the way it goes. I've also seen some people, everybody wants to blame Draymond for everything, which Draymond deserves his share of, blame for stuff he's done. But this is a way more simple, or it's a lot more complicated than just, well, if Draymond hadn't got suspended, they weren't going anywhere with Draymond playing 82 games. So that's the thing that I think people are losing sight of. Well, if this and now they weren't that good to begin with. Let's just lay that out there. It's a elimination game and they got smoked by Sacramento. It's not like, oh well, they were almost there. They were almost nothing. So now it's a question of, all right, so what do you do? Do you let Klay go? Do you trade somebody? What are you going to do? What are you going to tell Steph? How does this whole thing work? And it's just, I mean, it kind of comes down to me, Clark, like the Warriors kind of missed on some draft picks.
Yeah.
If they that second pick, if you change those picks, instead of taking Wiseman and Kuminga, they take LaMelo Ball and Franz Wagner, I think we might be having a different discussion right now. Or if they
Right.
use those draft picks to trade for a veteran player to actually help them, I think this might have gone differently. But then the thing that worked against the Warriors was Andrew Wiggins had an awesome NBA Finals, and so they gave him a contract. Unfortunately, he didn't live up to it, just like he hasn't lived up to any contract he's ever gotten. So,
Yeah.
so that's kind of the way that goes. But how do you see? I guess my question would be, how do you see them going forward? What would you do if you were running the Warriors?
Uh. Well, I mean, it's okay. So you could say like, well, they need to keep trying to win championships, but there's competing priorities because from what I heard Chris Mannix say this, and I heard Brian Windhorst say this. The owner wants to get out of the luxury tax. They
Right.
have been spending so much freaking money over the last 5 years. They got one title, and then what? Two total playoff appearances. They've missed the playoffs 3 of those 5 years. Um, yeah, so they're spending a lot of money. Klay Thompson, like the contract he signed, I mean, which again is up, but the contract he signed, he did not live up to that, and that's not really his fault. He had two, you know, really bad injuries. So, and that really, if you take those two injuries away, maybe we're having a different conversation because maybe Klay is still, an elite player, but he's not. He's not really there anymore, and he's probably never going to get back there just because of his age and then the injuries. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I guess, if you really, because they're spending so much freaking money with the luxury tax, it makes sense to me to get out of it. I understand you have Steph Curry and you want to win. So I guess maybe put it this way. If there's a move out there that you think would actually really give you a legit shot to win the championship, then okay, you can have that conversation. But beyond that, and I don't know what that move would be, beyond that, I mean, I understand trying to get out of it. And also, hey, Klay Thompson's been great there, and you guys have paid him a bunch of money. I don't think there's anything wrong with him leaving. And I do find it annoying when the media responds to like people they ask Steph about it or they ask Draymond Green about it. And of course they're going to say they want him to stay there. Of course they are. That's not how you run a team, though. You don't just go, well, the players want this. And it's It's like, no, that's not what you do. So I think there's nothing wrong with moving on from him and then maybe trying to see if you can get, maybe some more veterans in there. I mean, otherwise you're just going to basically be relying on the young guys to develop. And, the problem is that, like, yeah, they have some nice young players. Are they going to turn into elite players? Because if they're not going to do that, then what are we talking about here? We're talking about role players on a team, and that's not going to be enough to get them over the hump, especially considering their size issues and they're struggling to score. So outside of Steph Curry, so to be honest, it's not that interesting of a conversation. This is usually what happens, and they're just maybe they can make the playoffs some more. I mean, I'll put it this way: if Draymond didn't have that big suspension, maybe you know maybe they made a higher seed or whatever, and they're out of the play-in tournament possibly. But the Western Conference is really tough, so yeah, maybe they could make some moves and they could get themselves into the playoffs. But as far as winning a championship, like I don't see it. I just don't. I don't think they match up well with the best teams in the Western Conference. So I just don't. Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, they compounded the problem by trading Jordan Poole for Chris Paul. I mean, it's really, I know they wanted to get rid of Jordan Poole, but I mean, basically, I agree with you. I think you got to say, hey, Clay, here's a reasonable number. Either take that or go check out the market and see
Yeah.
what you can get. And I think Clay I think Clay will get a decent contract from somebody because there are teams that want veteran players who know what they're doing.
Right.
So I get that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think you got to sit down with Steph and say, hey, here's the deal. What do you want to do? This is where we are. And I think Steph probably gives him another year before he decides what he wants to do. And then, are we keeping Draymond? Are we going to roll with it? Because if you're not winning championships, Draymond becomes that much more of a headache
Right.
to deal with. And I also think it's really telling that Bob Myers, after last season, left. It's really telling that the general manager's like, you know what? I'm out of here. I don't want to have to trade Klay Thompson or trade Draymond Green. I don't want to deal with any of this. I'm going to move. I'm going to go move on. And so, yeah, that guy kind of tells you right there that, all right, the front office has changed. The ownership saying they don't want to spend the same amount of money. So, yeah, I think it's I think it's kind of done. I think you got to kind of let some of these guys go. So you have, so you got some cap space and try to put some players around Steph. The problem to me is the Andrew Wiggins deal that you gave him the new deal after you won the championship, and now you're just kind of stuck with it. You
Well, I
know,
mean, look, that's the thing. Like, we can criticize the different moves, but at the end of the day, they won 4 championships, and they went to the finals what, 6 times?
and they got one in 22 that I mean we all acknowledge they probably shouldn't have gotten. You
Well,
know,
and the other thing is, I mean, you literally look at it. They won 4, and they're you know a suspension and a Kevin Durant injury away from having 6. So, I mean, look, they had a lot of success. It was a great run. Like, there's no denying that. It's good. This is how these things end. And to be honest, like, when people bring this topic up, I get kind of like, it's like, yeah, don't you guys, like, it's over. Like, I don't. What do we?
what do you think? But moving forward, what do you think about Steph? Would you want him as a fan? Would you want him to go to another team that has a chance to win, or would you rather him stay in the same place that he's been his whole career and finish his career there, even if they can't win?
Oh, I don't really. The whole staying in one place for your whole career. I'm not necessarily. I'm not like, if you want to do that, fine. If you don't, I don't have a problem with it. So I don't really. I don't have any problem if he wants to go somewhere else. I don't know if he's going to do that or not. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it would be cool to see him go somewhere else.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it would be really. I think he could because Steph can fit on basically any team.
right.
So I think it would be really cool for him to go, all right, you know what, I'm going to go try this out, and I'll go over here, and I think it'd be really fascinating. I don't know
Yeah.
what team it would be. I have no idea what his thoughts are about that. I heard people bring up, everybody does this all the time. They bring up the little LeBron going to play with Steph kind of stuff, and I'm not the biggest fan of that. I think it would be great. but I don't think that's where I would go. I don't think that's what I would try to do. But, what do I know? But yeah, so I'm really interested to see kind of, I think that honestly, going forward, that's really the only story that I really care about is what does Steph do? Because everything
Right,
else, to me, everything else is irrelevant. Klay Thompson goes to another team, he'll be a role player. Draymond Green goes to another team, he'll be a role player. There's really not there's nobody else that's really changing the NBA landscape at this point. All
right.
right, let's talk about some playoffs. So Clark, I just wrote down some stuff. I mean, at first I started to write down stuff that annoys me, and then I kind of came out of that and realized, okay, these are kind of some things that I'm kind of interested in. So, all right, so the Denver Nuggets won Game 1 last night against the Lakers. Um, where are you at with the Nuggets, Clark? Are the Nuggets vulnerable, or do you just think they're the favorite to win the championship and that's all there is to it?
Yeah, I think they're the favorite to win the championship. I mean, it feels like they kind of can take their time with games and just kind of find their way into the game, and then kind of like the Warriors. I mean, it's just like, and then at a certain point, it's like, okay, here we go, let's go on a run and take control of the game, and that's what they did last night. Um, I mean, it really helps when you've got like Michael Porter is like your third option, or you got Aaron Gordon in there. Or KCP is he can shoot pretty well. He's hitting threes last night. Um, and then Jokic he's always going to make the right play. I mean he's gonna if he has to go down low and like make some moves and post somebody up, he can do that, or he can just I mean they had a pick and roll play last night that was just like you know Murray goes in, bounce pass to Jokic, LeBron comes up toward him, Jokic over to Aaron Gordon for the alley oop. I mean, it was just I just think that Jokic always makes the right play. Him and Murray are kind of joined at the hip. They know exactly what they want to do because they've been playing together for years now. So, yeah, they're the favorite because they know exactly what they need to do, and they have a two-time, maybe he'll win it this year. We'll see it. Possibly three-time MVP on their team. And I mean, he just went 30, 10, and 5 or something like that, and he's only the fourth player to ever do that in the playoffs while shooting like 65%. So yeah, I mean, and the thing is, it felt like I'm watching the Lakers, and it's like, man, they actually played pretty well most of that game. I mean, Anthony Davis played really well. I thought LeBron
Yep.
was hitting threes; he was shooting well. They made a few mistakes here and there, and then Denver took over, and then that was it. They couldn't come back. And I mean, obviously, D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves didn't really give them that much, so that obviously hurts. And I mean, just in terms of matchups, like, yeah, I mean, like, so Jamal Murray and Jokic, right? And then LeBron and Anthony Davis, okay, that's fine. But then it's like Michael Porter Jr., Austin Reeves, Michael Porter Jr. versus D'Angelo Russell,
Well, yeah, I look at it like this, and I think Jason Tim really described this very well. It's just going to be hard. It's hard for the Lakers to beat them because they need Anthony Davis and LeBron to play well on offense and defense, and they need their role players to outplay the Denver role players. You're not going to get both in the same game. You might get, Anthony Davis to have a game like he did, and then, Anthony Davis and LeBron to play really well in a game, or you might get the role players and LeBron to play well in a game, or you might, you know what I mean? But in order to beat Denver, you're probably going to need both of them. I'm sure there will be games where Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell outplay Porter and Gordon and the other guys for Denver. But then, is Anthony Davis going to give you 30 points? It's just, and that's how hard it is. That's how difficult it is to beat Denver. And it's like, I can just see, like, I don't, as I'm watching the game, I can just see the narrative forming. Well, look how it's the same thing as the series last year. It's like, well, look how well the Lakers played. Like, they really match up well. They really played well. And it's like, yeah, and it still doesn't
and they
matter.
lost by 11 points.
Right. It's just, it's like, no, credit to the Lakers. The Lakers are doing a good job. Like
Yeah,
I'm honestly surprised. Like I'm just surprised the Lakers couldn't get above the 8 seed or 7 seed. I'm just surprised they weren't better than that during the regular season. But the thing is, you look at the record, they were 10 games above 500. Like
yeah.
they were actually pretty good. It's just the West is ridiculous this year. So yeah, I think but on the scale, so here's the thing, here's how I look at it. On the scale where is Denver vulnerable? Um I think that Denver's the best team in the league right now. Are they a juggernaut? Are they the 2017 Warriors? No.
No, I don't think so.
We're
No,
not
no,
going to
no.
look at Denver as one of the greatest teams of all time. So are they are they yeah, they can be beaten, yes. Can they be beaten 4 times in 2 weeks? That's going to be really tough to do.
Yeah, and
But
then yeah, you look at a team like Boston, who a lot of people like, and it's like, well, guys, you're forgetting all the late game issues that Boston has had, and against Denver, like that's going to come up, because Denver they know exactly what they need to do. Like, there's no, I mean, you know, compared to some of these other teams, they know exactly what they got to do, and they're going to do it when they need to. And if you can play better than them, yeah, maybe you can beat them. But I just don't, I mean, we'll have to see with a team like Minnesota if they end up playing Denver. I mean, that's with Minnesota's size and their defense, maybe that can help them. And then you got Anthony Edwards, who's clearly really good. So
yeah, I think so yeah, look, again, like I said, Denver's not a juggernaut. Can they be beaten? Yes. But it's not going to be by the Lakers. Like
yeah,
I'm here to tell you, the team that as a Denver fan, and I agree with you. I think Denver's a favorite. I think they're going to win the championship. But Denver's not perfect. They have some lapses on defense, and they come into these games sometimes, and they're not guarding like they should, like in the first half last night. But in the second half, they shut them down. So they left 60 points in the first half, 43 in the second half.
hmm
So when they needed to, they brought it. But the team that would scare me as a Denver fan would be Minnesota. I think because of the way Minnesota, you can't be an offensive team and beat Denver. Like, you're not going to outscore them. If you want to try to play that way, they'll just light you up all night.
yeah,
Like, that's not going to be a problem. You're going to have to be a defensive team and to try to limit what they do. Minnesota's problem is going to be, can they score enough? And if Davis doesn't go off, excuse me, if Anthony Edwards doesn't go off, their offense is a struggle. It's really hard. And
right.
Towns just came back, so it's hard. He's going to be kind of getting
Well, I
himself
mean,
into shape.
if they were to play Denver, say in the Western Conference Finals, you'd figure by that point he'd be more,
Right.
ready to go. So yeah,
But that being said, it's not like Gobert is going to slow down Jokic. Like, Jokic kills him. So
yeah,
I don't really, that's not something that I think is going to happen. But that's a team that's built the way I think you need to be built in order to beat them. I think, I mean, if this is looking way ahead, but I mean, if Boston played them in the finals, my concern with Boston would be you're just trying to outshoot them.
yeah,
And I just don't think that's going to fly. You're going to
right,
have to beat them on defense, and I'm not sure about Boston on that end. But anyway, let's
right.
move on to Minnesota. I mean, this series annoys me because I just feel like the standard TV host is going to be like, well, I'm going to take Phoenix. They got Kevin Durant, so I'm going to take Phoenix, and just ignoring how uh, all over the place they were this season. And look, I think Phoenix will have some games they will shoot the lights out, and if they do,
Yeah,
they will be trouble. But I just think in this series, I think Minnesota has the stuff defensively to give Phoenix problems, and I think they can just drag Phoenix down, you know,
I
into the
just don't
mud with
see how
them.
it's going to be easy for Phoenix to score. The thing is, they can, because Kevin Durant's one of the greatest scorers of all time. I mean, he was lighting it up yesterday. I mean, just hitting mid range jumpers all over the place. Booker didn't necessarily play that well, neither did Bradley Beal. So yeah, if you get a game where two of them play well, then yeah, maybe they could win. But that just doesn't. It felt like Minnesota kind of felt their way through the game, and then they kind of figured some stuff out, and then they really made it tough on them in the second half. And I just don't think. I just think over the course of the series, there's just no way Phoenix is going to be able to deal with that.
And I was thinking watching it when I was watching Towns, I was thinking, you know what? Well, he's injured. He came back off an injury, and sometimes, like when you're hurt, like it kind of sharpens your focus a little bit, and you don't want to do too much. Which,
Yeah,
if you're gonna illuminate one problem for Carl Anthony Towns, it's trying to do too much.
right.
You know what I mean? So if I get Carl Anthony Towns just trying not to do too much, just doing what's letting the game come to him, like, oh my God, that unlocks a whole different door. The only problem for Minnesota is they're going to need Anthony Edwards to be awesome offensively because
Right.
they don't have a lot of firepower on that end. But I just think when they get on defense, like they just have so much athleticism and so much ability with Edwards and McDaniels that I just think they're going to give Phoenix a really hard time. And I don't think Phoenix defensively is up to it.
Yeah. No.
You know,
And we
I
knew
just
that
think
coming into the season. I mean,
I think Gobert will handle Nurkic just fine. He'll control. I think he'll control the glass. He'll be awesome on defense. The only way I think the way you got to beat Minnesota is you might have to go small, but I don't think Phoenix can do that for long stretches. Like they can't play Durant at center for 35 minutes a game. So yeah, that becomes difficult. Maybe I've just been out on Phoenix the whole time, but I think Minnesota finds a way in this series, and maybe I'm betting on a young team and all that, but
well, they've
they've
been
got
to the
veteran players on
playoffs
their team.
before.
Right.
They've been to the playoffs a few times. Anthony Edwards has been to the playoffs a few times.
Yep.
So I'm not necessarily like the young people. Sometimes they say this is a young team, and it's kind of like, they're somewhere in between. Maybe they're
Yeah,
not
I mean,
young, but they're not veterans.
Gobert's
But
been to the playoffs a lot, right?
yeah,
Towns has been to the playoffs before. Conley's a veteran, right? Yeah, you're right. And Nas Reed coming off the bench is I think Minnesota just has matchups that Phoenix can't do
right.
anything about.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I
They're
just
just.
feel like
I mean,
over the
especially watching that game. I mean, it's just like Minnesota is so much bigger than Phoenix. I mean, it's just clear. I
Yep.
mean, just not just the main guys, but all the other guys, Nas Reed and
Yep.
stuff. I mean, it's like wow.
Yep. They're
So
bigger and more athletic. And so I just think that causes a problem. And if they, like I said, if they play, they're the number one defense in the league. If they play good, solid defense and get after it, this is going to be really hard for Phoenix.
yeah,
So yeah, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I'm a Minnesota guy when it comes to this.
yeah. By the way, it
Um.
was really fun to watch Anthony Edwards yesterday.
Oh yeah. Woo, woo.
When he hit that three, and then he started talking trash to Durant, like
Yeah, man. Let me tell you something. I'm looking forward. I mean, he's going to be our guy as far as American-born players. This is
yeah,
going to be our dude. So
yeah,
we got to be ready. But yeah, he looks ready for the moment. He looks
yeah,
ready to go. And so that's awesome. Like I hope we get as many games with him as we can because he's one of the most exciting players in the league. This series I'm kind of perplexed by is the Knicks and the Sixers. So you got this Knicks team that basically they have one guy, one star. Basically, that's who they're going to. That's kind of how it works. They play hard. They play their ass off every game, as every Thibodeau team does. And Philadelphia, who's got the more talented team, let's be honest.
right,
They have more talent, more firepower, but Embiid looks gassed in the third quarter of these games. And I think, I'm not concerned about, I mean, his health with his knee is one thing. That's obviously a concern. The bigger concern for me, Clark, is the conditioning. I just I don't think he can play the way he needs to for four quarters and for entire series. Now, they're going to get extra time off in the first round. I get that. But I took the Knicks in this series. It probably goes 6 or 7, but I'm taking the Knicks because I don't feel like I'm gonna get a consistent games from Embiid and entire games where he can, and I think that's what they're gonna need in order to beat the Knicks.
right. Yeah, yeah. That's obviously a huge concern. I mean, if Philadelphia had Embiid and he didn't get hurt, they'd probably have a higher seed. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
that's one of those things that I'm really like I'm a little annoyed with the media about. Like they seem to just act like seeding doesn't matter, and I'm like, there's a reason they're that seed. Like I don't think you should just throw it all out. Like you know, people get these funny ideas. It's like, oh well, look what Miami did last year. Yeah, I'm a Miami Heat fan, but come on, you think that's going to happen every year? Like this is not the NHL, guys. This is not. They're seeding for a reason, and usually it holds up. And I know the Lakers did what they did last year, but that was come on, that was a little weird too. So
yeah. Well, what I would say about that is, yeah, in general, you're right. But if Embiid was like MVP Embiid, then the seeding wouldn't matter. You know what I mean?
okay,
That's the only thing. That's the only thing that's got me picking the Knicks because if I were just picking the team straight up and they were both at full health, I'm taking Philadelphia all day. They just have significantly more talent than the Knicks do. The Knicks, but again, the Philadelphia doesn't play hard all the time. The Knicks give you everything they've got every minute of every day.
right,
So of every game. So yeah, but I watched the first half and I was like, oh my god, Embiid looks so good. But then in the second half, he kind of fizzled out. So
right.
yeah, I'm going with the Knicks again. I'm not like I don't feel great about it. I wouldn't put any money on it, but yeah, I just feel like the Knicks will be too much now. Now, What I will say this though, Clark. If Philadelphia makes it out of this series, I think they're going to go to the conference finals. Because if they make it out of this series and Embiid can kind of get back in kind of some kind of rhythm, then look out because they would play the winner of the Indiana Milwaukee series. And Milwaukee's looked pretty bad for a while, and Indiana plays no defense. So I think that I really like. It's just I just don't think they can get past this series. If they do, I think Philadelphia is going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals against Boston. So
Okay.
that's how I see it. I just don't think Embiid's gonna take a while to get there. Do we really need to discuss the Miami Heat? I mean, I'm just annoyed. I'm annoyed with the Miami Heat. Well, I guess we can talk about
Yeah, we
that.
didn't want them to make the playoffs because Jimmy Butler's out for several weeks. So it's just at
Yeah,
this point, it's like, what's the point? I mean, if they, put it this way, if they had Jimmy Butler, no, I'd still be into it if they had Jimmy Butler, but without him, I just don't really see the point.
yeah, and that's the thing that I'm just annoyed with this team, Clark, because I just feel like they had potential. I don't think they were going to be again. I don't think they were going to be great. I don't think they were going to be a top 2 or 3 seed. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they had potential. But Butler still healthy, and if Rozier was healthy and playing this whole time, I just feel like this roster they have. I feel like it could be better than last year's, just on paper. That now obviously it won't be because they never played up to that potential, right? But I
Right,
just feel like the potential of that roster, if they're full go, I think they can give Boston a hard time. Maybe
right,
not beat them, but I think they give them hell on the way out.
right.
And so that's what I'm disappointed about. If this team had just gotten their act together a couple of weeks ago, and won the Indiana game and won the Philadelphia game, then they would have been the 6th seed, and we'd be talking about, oh, they could go somewhere. But
Right,
because of this, like, forget it. And then Butler getting hurt, I mean, that's just icing on the cake. So yeah,
right.
I'm just disappointed, but I get it. I'm not freaking out. I'm annoyed, and I wish they had lost to Chicago, but you know Chicago couldn't hang in there long enough to
Yeah, it's all right. I'm not, with the Heat, I'm not like in some desperate quest to get a championship. They've gotten 3 in their history. So, and those are relatively recently. So, and they did just make the finals last year. So, I'm not, and it's just look, they haven't been able to, since LeBron left, they have not been able to get. I mean, they got Jimmy Butler, but they have not been able to get, you know, like someone who could be an MVP. They have not been able to get anybody like that, which is just that's how the NBA works. It's tough to do. Sometimes you got to draft somebody, or sometimes you just get lucky in free agency, or you make a trade. So it's just
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to talk about before we get out of here is I feel like Dallas became a sexy pick in the last couple of months because they made the trades and then they started really playing well and everybody kind of lost their minds.
right.
And they got smoked by the Clippers today, by the way. Clippers without Kawhi, and Dallas just got absolutely destroyed. So I just like to, I know Dallas has become a sexy pick. I know everybody loves it. Kyrie hit that last second shot against Denver back in March that everybody got all excited about. I just want to, point something out. Nobody's a bigger Luca fan than me, and Clark, you can attest to this. I love Luca like my son. Okay, like nobody wants Luca to win more than I do. Okay, they're not going to the finals. Okay, they're not better than Denver. Like now, look, if they can find a way to win this series against the Clippers, maybe they can beat Oklahoma City and end up in the conference finals. I can see that. I understand what you're saying about
Right.
that path, but they're not beating Denver in a 7-game series, guys. Everybody's freaking out about the Kyrie shot. Jamal Murray missed a wide open 15-footer right before that. Wide open. Okay, he makes that shot. We're not talking about this crazy Kyrie shot. So listen, I think it's great what Dallas has done, and I disagree with. By the way, I heard this on NBA Countdown today, which I know NBA Countdown is not the best place for basketball
Yeah.
advice, but Michael Wilbon's like, this Dallas team, this is better than the team that went to the conference finals a couple years ago, and I'm like, no, it isn't. Like, I hate to break it to you, bro. No, it's not. I'm looking at this team. You guys think it's better because they have Kyrie. Kyrie's basically doing what Jalen Brunson was doing 2 years ago. That's basically what's happening here. Dallas has basically the wings they have on their team. You can't, they're not really great defenders. The wings they had in 22 were, okay. They've done this now, by the way, great job drafting Derek Lively and trading for Daniel Gafford. I'm not saying that doesn't work. You got to have a rim running big if you got to have Luka on your team. I get it. It's a real weapon. I understand that. But everybody's like, oh, their defense, their defense. They got smoked by the Clippers today. They shot 50% from three.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't want to hear about how awesome their defense is. Like, I want Dallas to win more than anybody. Okay. But it's not happening. This series with the Clippers should be awesome. Everybody's like trying to hand it to Dallas before the series started, which obviously the Clippers heard about it. So let's just slow down and wait and see what happens. But
Right.
yeah, I think I'll say I think it's I think it's probably Denver against Dallas in the conference finals. I think it's probably that, or Dallas or the Clippers. I think probably whoever wins this series probably beats Oklahoma City. And then in the East, it's hard for me to see Boston losing to the East to anybody in the East, even if Boston screws up a couple games. I don't even know that it matters. They're going to kill Miami. They're going to play Orlando or Cleveland in the second round. They're going to smoke them.
Right.
So, I think it probably it depends on what happens with Giannis, honestly. If Philadelphia gets past the Knicks, then I'd say Philadelphia, Boston in the conference finals. If not, then maybe if Milwaukee gets past Indiana and they get Giannis back, then they'll be ready to go and they could beat the Knicks in a series. But I don't feel the East does not look good. It does not look good at all. I don't know how anybody's excited about it. But yeah, I just and you know what? I'm going to keep on saying this. I still feel like people are disrespecting Denver. I know that
Oh
sounds
yeah.
ridiculous. They
Dude,
won the championship.
I totally agree.
I feel like that they're just not. It's like we're acting like we're looking for all kinds of reasons why they lost that Spurs game last week or whatever, and everybody's like, oh, what's wrong with Denver, blah blah blah. It's like they had the game won. The Spurs guy hit a last second floater at the buzzer. Like, we're acting like, oh my God, how could they lose that game and lose the 1 seed? Oh my God. And then, well, look at their path, blah, blah, blah. When they beat the Lakers in 5 games, I want to be like, oh, their path is difficult, huh?
Yeah.
I just don't feel like, I just feel like they're going to go, they could go back to back, Clark, and people are going to be like, yeah, they're not as good as, it's just like, I don't know what you people want. Like, I
Well,
saw this
I
coming.
want them to. I want them to go back to back just because I feel like
Yeah.
they're really capable of it, and also if you go back to back, history won't forget it.
Right.
Like it's like okay, we didn't like the Spurs, but they won 5 titles. Like people are going to remember that.
Yep.
The teams that repeat because it doesn't happen that often. So if you do, even like the bad boy Pistons, they only won 2 championships, but they went back to back, and it's like people remember that. Obviously they also had other stuff that people remembered, but yeah, if you win 2 in a row, it's kind of because you just win one off, it gets kind of people kind of forget about it, or they're like, oh, that wasn't that great. But if you win 2 in a row, it's you were really really good for at least a 2-year stretch. So. And I think they're capable of it. I think they absolutely should. If they don't, I feel like it's somewhat of a not failure, but it's just kind of they have the potential. So it'd be like you didn't really maximize what you had. So
Yeah, and I feel like we've talked about this before, but I just feel like people, if you follow basketball, you should have seen this coming. Like, I
yeah,
just feel like this was obvious in 2020 in the bubble when they did what they did to the Clippers. I just feel like it was obvious. Okay, this team's coming. And then people are like, people just tried to take a shit on them because Jamal Murray was out, and so they lost some playoff series. And it's like, hello, he comes back and then they win the championship. It's like I don't know what to tell you people. Like if you can't figure this out, are you paying attention? Are you watching the games?
right.
It's really not that complicated. Anyway, all right, let's get on out of here. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Any topics you feel like we missed or we should talk about, let us know. And enjoy the NBA playoffs. We'll try to get on here weekly from now on, for at least through the rest of the playoffs, because we enjoy it and we hope you do too. All right, everybody, have a nice weekend.